When I bent down to adjust my scarf in the notary's office that crisp autumn morning, my eyes caught a flash of something that made my blood run cold. There, as my daughter's fiancé, Terrence, crouched to tie his loose shoelace, the sunlight glinted off the supple leather of his shoes, deep brown, intricately tooled, with a discreet gold emblem on the side that screamed luxury. I'd seen that brand before, Magnani, in the upscale windows of a downtown Chicago department store, where pairs started at $500 a pop. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. This was the man who'd pleaded poverty, the one I'd agreed to give $280,000 for a house down payment because he couldn't afford to give Michaela the life she deserved. And here he was, in shoes that cost more than a month's rent for most folks. I didn't say a word, didn't let a single tear fall. Instead, I slipped my checkbook back into my purse, grabbed Michaela's arm, and walked out, leaving the stunned notary and real estate agent in our wake. What had I seen? Not just a pair of shoes, but a crack in the facade of a man who'd wormed his way into our lives. How had it come to this? When did the fairy tale turn sour? Welcome to my story, a tale of trust shattered and truths unearthed, sparked by something as simple as a shoelace. I'm Brielle Carter, 62 years old, a retired elementary school teacher from the south side of Chicago. My husband passed from prostate cancer years ago, leaving me to raise our only daughter, Michaela, on my own. We've been thick as thieves ever since, navigating life's ups and downs with the kind of bond only a single mom and her girl can forge. I've got a modest pension, about $40,000 a year, and savings tucked away from scrimping over the decades, totaling around $500,000. Our home is a cozy 2-bedroom bungalow in Englewood. Nothing fancy, but it's paid off and full of memories. My days are simple, tending my small garden with tomatoes and herbs, watching reruns of old sitcoms, walking to the corner store for fresh produce. That is, until Michaela brought Terrence home for dinner one Sunday afternoon. The wind was howling off Lake Michigan, rattling the windows as I stirred a pot of collard greens in the kitchen. The doorbell buzzed, and in walked Michaela with this tall, lanky young man trailing behind her, carrying a modest basket of peaches, ripe and fragrant, the kind you get from a roadside stand. Terrence was about 6 feet tall, with smooth brown skin, a neatly trimmed goatee, and eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He wore a faded plaid shirt, jeans that had seen better days, and what looked like well-worn canvas sneakers. "Mrs. Carter, it's a pleasure. I'm Terrence," he said, extending a hand with a slight bow, his voice soft and respectful. There was a shyness about him that put me at ease right away. Dinner was lively but not overwhelming. He helped set the table without being asked, complimented my cooking profusely, and when I reached for the pitcher of iced tea, he jumped up. "Allow me, ma'am." He spoke of his roots in rural Mississippi, parents who farmed cotton, how he'd worked his way through community college with odd jobs before landing a sales supervisor gig at a hardware distributor in the suburbs, pulling in about $60,000 a year. It's not much, but I budget tight. Rent's $12,200 a month, and I send a little home to help my folks. His humility touched me. Michaela gazed at him with stars in her eyes, her dark curls bouncing as she nodded along. She was 32, a social worker with a heart bigger than her paycheck, and seeing her so smitten warmed my soul. After dinner, he insisted on washing dishes, but I waved him off. "You're family now," he quipped with a grin. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was Michaela's happy ending. The morning after that first dinner felt like a fresh start, with sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows and the aroma of fresh brewed coffee filling the air. Michaela burst in, her fluffy robe fluttering behind her like wings, her eyes sparkling with excitement and a hint of nervousness. She plopped down at the table across from me, twisting a lock of her dark curls around her finger. "Mom, be honest. What did you really think of Terrence last night? I mean, I know he's not some high roller, but—" I set my mug down gently, smiling warmly as I looked into her eager face. "Sweetheart, he struck me as a truly genuine person. He's polite, seems hardworking, and from the way he talks about his family, it's clear he values those close to him. That's more important than any fancy car or big bank account. Her whole body seemed to relax, and her smile exploded like fireworks on the 4th of July. She leaped up and wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "Oh, Mom, I'm so relieved. He's not flashy at all, you know? No showing off with expensive gadgets or anything. But he's real. He treats me like I'm the most important person in the world, always listening, always there when I need him." I hugged her back, feeling a swell of maternal joy. Over the next few weeks, Terrence started showing up more and more, weaving himself into the fabric of our daily lives without ever feeling intrusive. He'd knock on the door after his shift at the hardware distributor, often carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked up from the local farmer's market, simple daisies or sunflowers that brightened our modest kitchen table. His tall, lanky frame would fill the doorway, casting a long shadow across the linoleum floor. I began to notice more about his appearance. He had a lean, athletic build that he attributed to weekend runs in the nearby park, his skin a smooth shade of brown that glowed under the evening light, and he was always impeccably clean-shaven, with a quiet confidence that spoke volumes without a single boastful word. One particularly rainy evening, as water dripped steadily from the faucet in the bathroom sink, he overheard me muttering about calling a plumber. Without hesitation, he rolled up his sleeves and grabbed the toolbox from under the sink. "Let me take a look, Mrs. Carter," he offered, his voice steady and reassuring. As he worked, twisting the wrench with skilled hands, he chatted casually. "I grew up tinkering on my parents' farm down in Mississippi, fixing tractors, patching fences, you name it. Saved us a lot of money over the years." Sweat beaded on his forehead, and he wiped it away with the back of his arm, grinning up at me when he finally tightened the last bolt. "There, that should hold. No more drip-drip all night." I thanked him profusely, handing him a glass of lemonade, and we sat for a bit, conversations flowing as naturally as the now fixed water. He opened up more about his background, how his parents had scraped by on the cotton fields, barely making ends meet, and how he'd bust tables at diners through high school and community college to pay his way. "It wasn't easy, but it taught me the value of hard work," he said earnestly. "Now all I want is to build something stable for Michaela, a real home, a future we can count on." His words carried a sincere weight, and I could see why Michaela was drawn to him. She blossomed in his presence, her warm brown eyes lighting up whenever he entered the room, her infectious laugh echoing through the house more often than it had in years. She'd always been my steadfast support, pitching in with bills during the lean times after her father's passing. But now she spoke dreamily of tomorrows, trips to the lake, maybe kids someday. Then, on a bright, sunny Saturday that felt full of promise, Terrence arrived for what he called his official proposal visit. He was dressed much like before, a comfortable plaid shirt that hugged his shoulders, well-worn jeans, and those familiar canvas sneakers that looked like they'd walked many miles. In his hands, he carried another fruit basket, this time with apples and oranges, and a plain white envelope that he held with a slight tremble. He fidgeted on our old floral couch, his long legs folded awkwardly as he cleared his throat. "Mrs. Carter, I love Michaela more than anything. She's the light in my life, and I want to spend the rest of my days making her happy. I want to marry her, with your blessing." His eyes met mine, vulnerable and hopeful. Then he handed over the envelope. "This is $12,000, a check from my savings. It's not a fortune, I know, but it's everything I've managed to put aside. It's my way of showing I'm committed, that I'm serious about building a life with her." I opened it carefully, feeling the weight of his effort. At 62, with my graying curls tied back in a simple bun and the fine lines around my eyes from decades of corralling energetic schoolkids, I'd learned to read people pretty well. This felt real, like the kind of sincerity that's rare these days. Michaela sat beside him, beaming, her hand clasped tightly in his, her fingers intertwined with his in a way that spoke of deep trust. I slid the check back to him. "Terrence, keep it. Your heart and intentions are what matter most to me. That's worth more than any amount of money." He exhaled in relief, his shoulders relaxing, but then Michaela shifted uncomfortably, glancing at him before turning to me with a hesitant expression. "Mom, there's something else. We've been looking at houses, and we found this perfect one in Oak Park. It's cozy, with a nice backyard and good schools nearby for whenever we might start a family. But the down payment? We're short about $280,000 after pooling what we have." Terrence looked down, his face apologetic as he rubbed the back of his neck. "I hate even bringing this up, Mrs. Carter. It's embarrassing, really. I've been saving every penny, but with my salary and helping my folks back home, it's just not enough yet. I don't want Michaela to have to wait years while I scrape it together. She deserves better than that." His voice cracked a little, showing the genuine frustration of a man trying his best. My heart softened completely in that moment. I'd built up those savings over years of careful budgeting, earmarking them for emergencies or to help my daughter when she needed it most. And this? This felt like the right kind of emergency, the one that could secure her happiness. "All right," I said after a thoughtful pause. "I'll cover the $280,000, but there's one condition. The house title goes in Michaela's name, for her security." They both nodded vigorously, their faces lighting up with gratitude. "Of course, Mrs. Carter. Whatever makes you comfortable." "Thank you, from the bottom of my heart," Terrence replied, his eyes shining. Michaela squeezed my hand. "Mom, you're the best. We promise to make you proud." That night, after they left, I sat in my quiet bedroom, staring at a faded photo of my late husband on the nightstand, his kind smile frozen in time. I whispered to it softly, tracing the frame with my finger. "I'm doing the right thing by her, aren't I? Giving her a shot at the stability we had." The room felt peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, I drifted off to sleep with a sense of contentment. The moment I committed to that $280,000 down payment, it felt like a wave of joy swept through our little bungalow. The air in the house seemed lighter, filled with the kind of hopeful energy I hadn't felt since Michaela graduated college. Almost every evening after work, she'd rush in with Terrence in tow, their arms loaded with glossy real estate brochures and rolled-up floor plans. They'd spread everything out on the kitchen table, right next to my half-finished cup of tea, and dive into animated discussions about their future home. Michaela's eyes would light up, her fingers tracing the outlines of rooms as if she could already feel the walls around her. Terrence, with his easy smile and that goatee framing his jaw, would lean in close, pointing out details with a pencil he'd pulled from his shirt pocket. "Mom, just look at this. The master bedroom has these huge windows facing east," Michaela said one night, her voice bubbling with excitement. She pushed the blueprint toward me, her dark curls falling over her shoulder. "Imagine waking up to the morning sun streaming in, painting everything golden. And there's even a little nook for a reading chair. I can picture us having lazy Sundays there, sipping coffee and planning our days." Terrence nodded enthusiastically, his tall frame hunched over the table to get a better view. "Yeah, and check out the guest room right here, Mrs. Carter. We could turn it into a cozy spot with a pull-out sofa and some shelves for your books. That way, when you come stay with us, and I hope that's often, you'll have your own comfortable space. Maybe even add one of those adjustable lamps for reading late at night." I couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. It warmed my heart to see them including me in their dreams, making sure I felt like part of this new chapter. "That sounds lovely, you two. You've got good taste. Practical and thoughtful." Deep down, I felt a quiet satisfaction. My hard-earned savings were going towards something meaningful, a stable foundation for my daughter's happiness. Terrence's gratitude seemed genuine, the way he'd glance at me with those crinkled eyes saying, "We couldn't do this without you, Mrs. Carter. You're making our future possible." But as the house viewings ramped up, little cracks started to appear in that perfect picture. We'd pile into Terrence's older sedan, a reliable but unflashy Honda with a few dings on the bumper, and drive out to suburbs like Oak Park or Evanston. The homes were charming, two-story colonials with manicured lawns, spacious kitchens, and backyards big enough for barbecues. During one tour, as we wandered through a sunlit living room, Terrence let out a low whistle. These places are incredible, but man, the prices, houses like this are skyrocketing. It's tough for someone like me, starting from scratch, to even dream about affording it without help. On the walk back to the car after another showing, he fell into step beside me, his hands shoved deep into his jeans pockets. The autumn leaves crunched under our feet, and a cool breeze carried the scent of impending rain. "Mrs. Carter, I appreciate you more than I can say," he began, his voice dropping to a confiding tone. "Rent's eating me alive at $100 a month in my cramped apartment downtown. And with sending money back to my mom, she's been dealing with health issues, diabetes acting up. I barely have anything left at the end of the month. I skip eating out. No vacations. Just grinding at work to save what I can. I hate that Michaela has to wait because of my situation. She deserves better. A real home where we can build memories." His words tugged at my sympathies, painting him as the hardworking underdog I'd first met. But something nagged at me, the way his eyes would dart away when he mentioned finances, or how he'd quickly change the subject if I asked about specifics, like how much he sent home or what his budget looked like. It felt rehearsed, almost like he was reading from a script designed to evoke just the right amount of pity. I pushed the unease down, telling myself I was being overly cautious after years of raising Michaela alone. "You're doing your best, Terrence," I'd reply. "That's what counts." As signing day drew near, the anticipation built. Terrence offered to drive us to the notary's office, pulling up in his sedan right on time that crisp morning. He looked sharp but casual, a button-down shirt tucked into slacks, his goatee neatly trimmed. "Hop in, ladies," he said with a grin, opening the doors for us. My hands might shake a bit signing for something this big. First time buying a house, Feels surreal. The drive was lighthearted, with Michaela chatting about paint colors and Terrence cracking jokes to ease any nerves. We arrived at the notary's office, a modern building with glass doors reflecting the blue sky. Inside, the air was cool and professional, stacks of papers waiting on a polished table. As we took our seats, Terrence's shoelace came undone on his left foot. He chuckled softly, bending down to tie it, his movements quick and casual. That's when the sunlight from the window caught the leather just right, deep brown, with intricate tooling and a subtle sheen that spoke of quality craftsmanship. My gaze locked on the side, spotting the discreet gold emblem, Magnani, an Italian brand I'd glimpsed in high-end stores, where shoes easily ran $500 or more. My mind reeled. How could this fit? This was the man who'd lamented his tight budget, who claimed every penny went to rent and family. Expensive shoes like these didn't align with skipped meals or no vacations. Doubts flooded in. Was this a one-off splurge, or a sign of something hidden? I couldn't confront him here, not without proof. It would shatter Michaela. Instead, I pulled out my phone, pretending to check a message. "Oh no," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil. "What? My account's frozen? Some issue with an old investment. Possible fraud alert." Terrence's head snapped up, his expression shifting from relaxed to a flash of raw disappointment before he masked it with concern. "Frozen? That sounds serious, Mrs. Carter. How long do they think it'll take to sort out?" "A week at least," I replied, feigning frustration. "The bank says it's temporary, but we can't proceed today. I'm so sorry, this ruins the plans." Michaela looked worried, squeezing my hand. "Mom, are you okay? We can reschedule." Terrence nodded quickly, but I caught the tightness in his jaw. "Of course, no rush. Your finances come first." We gathered our things and left, the notary apologizing profusely. Back in the car, the mood was subdued. Terrence driving in silence while Michaela tried to lighten things with small talk. At home, I sat alone on the couch, the afternoon light filtering through the curtains. Replaying the scene, the gleaming shoes, his fleeting look of frustration stirred a deeper unease. This wasn't paranoia. It was instinct honed from years of protecting my daughter. I needed answers, real evidence, before handing over a dime. For Michaela's sake, I had to dig deeper, no matter what I uncovered. That single glimpse of Terrence's expensive shoes had planted a seed of doubt in my mind, and over the next few days, it sprouted into something sharp and unrelenting, like a thorny vine wrapping around my thoughts. I couldn't shake the image, the way the leather gleamed under the office lights, the subtle gold emblem that screamed high-end luxury. How could a man who claimed to scrape by on $60,000 a year, sending money home to his ailing parents and skipping meals to save, afford shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent? It didn't add up, and the more I replayed our conversations in my head, the more cracks I saw in his carefully crafted story. But I knew I couldn't just blurt it out to Michaela. At 32, she was head over heels, seeing him through rose-tinted glasses. If I accused him outright without proof, she'd defend him fiercely, maybe even pull away from me. No, I had to be smart about this, gather evidence quietly, like piecing together a puzzle before showing her the full picture. This wasn't just about my savings, it was about protecting her heart and her future. I started by reaching out to family for help, keeping it discreet so word wouldn't get back. My nephew Caleb was the perfect first call. He was 35, sharp as a tack, and worked as a loan officer at a downtown Chicago bank. We'd always been close. He'd spent summers at my house as a kid, helping in the garden, and I trusted his judgment on financial matters. I waited until evening, when I knew he'd be home from work, and dialed his number. "Caleb, honey, it's Aunt Brielle," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need a favor, but it's got to stay between us." He sounded concerned right away, his deep voice warm but alert. "Of course, Aunt Brie. What's going on? You sound worried." I took a deep breath and explained the situation without naming names at first. Michaela's fiancé, he's presented himself as this hardworking guy from humble roots, but something doesn't feel right. I saw him wearing these fancy Italian shoes, the kind that cost a fortune, and it doesn't match his story of barely making ends meet. "Can you run a quiet check on him? Just look for any red flags, like debts, loans, or anything that screams he's living beyond his means." His name's Terrence Hayes, works at that hardware distributor in the suburbs. Caleb paused for a moment, and I could hear him scribbling notes. "All right, Aunt Brie, I get it. Sounds like you're being cautious, and that's smart. I can't pull full credit reports without permission. That's against regs, but I can check public records, liens, court filings, and maybe some basic financial footprints. Give me a couple days. I'll dig around without raising alarms. And hey, if he's clean, no harm done." "Thanks, Caleb. You're a lifesaver," I replied, feeling a small weight lift. "Just text me if you find anything, or nothing. I need to know either way." While waiting on him, I turned to the digital side of things. These days, everyone's life is splashed online, even if they try to hide it. Michaela's cousin Tiana was my go-to for that. She was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in graphic design, and spent half her life on social media. She lived in the loop, always glued to her phone, scrolling through Instagram and TikTok like it was her job. I texted her that same night. "Tiana, girl, Aunt Brie here. Need your help digging into something online. Michaela's man, Terrence, can you snoop on his socials? Look for anything off, like fancy trips or spending that doesn't match a modest life. Screenshots if you find them." Her reply came fast, with a string of emojis. "Aunt Brie? Drama? Sure thing. Send his handles or full name. I'm on it like a pro detective. Won't take long." I gave her what I had, his Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn from what Michaela had shared. Tiana was thorough. By the next afternoon, my phone buzzed with a flood of messages. "Okay, Aunt Brie. His own profiles are super clean, boring, even. Just pics of him jogging in the park, coffee dates with Michaela, some work quotes like, 'Hustle hard, stay humble.' No red flags there. But I cross-checked his friends list and tagged posts. Jackpot on this guy Darius. Looks like Terrence's buddy from college. Darius's Insta is wild. Check these out. The screenshots poured in, and my heart sank with each one. Darius was a flashy type, mid-30s, with a shaved head, gold chains, and a smirk in every photo. His feed was a non-stop parade of excess, late-night parties at trendy clubs in Wrigleyville, bottles of champagne popping under strobe lights, groups posing in front of rented Lamborghinis and BMWs on Michigan Avenue. And there, in photo after photo, was Terrence, tall and grinning, dressed in outfits I'd never seen him wear around us. Designer hoodies from brands like Off-White, sneakers that matched those Magnani shoes in price tag, arms slung around women in skimpy dresses. One caption read, "Squad goals at the rooftop bash, Terrence holding it down." But the real gut punch came in a series from a VIP lounge at some upscale bar. Terrence was lounging on a velvet couch, a glamorous woman with long, wavy hair and bold makeup draped over his lap. She looked about 28, confident and charismatic, with a tattoo peeking from her sleeve. The caption, "Terrence dropping big on Serenity tonight, king of the stream." Tiana followed up, "Serenity's a big Twitch streamer, Aunt Bree. Over 500K followers, does gaming, lifestyle stuff, super bold vibe." I dug deeper. Donation logs from her streams show a user, King T, matches Terrence's initials, gifting rockets. Those are $500 virtual GIF. He's done it multiple times, like thousands in total over months. I stared at my screen, my hands trembling. King T had timestamps matching nights Terrence claimed he was working late or visiting family. This wasn't occasional splurging, it was a double life. The frugal, family-oriented man who'd charmed me over dinners was blowing cash on streams, parties, and who knows what else. My stomach churned as I imagined handing over $280,000 to fund more of this deception. I backed up every screenshot to a secure folder on my computer, then printed hard copies just in case. "Thanks, Tiana. You're amazing," I texted back. "This stays quiet for now." Caleb called the day after, his tone serious. "Aunt Bree, I found some stuff. No major bankruptcies, but public records show a couple of unpaid parking tickets and a small claims suit from 2 years ago. Something about unpaid rent on an old apartment. More interestingly, he's got a few credit inquiries recently, like he's applying for loans or cards. And get this, a lien on a vehicle, a used Mercedes, not the beat-up sedan he drives around you, valued at $25,000. Doesn't scream struggling, does it? It all clicked. The shoes, the hidden luxury, the online facade. Terrence wasn't poor. He was playing poor to tap into my savings. My heart ached for Michaela, but anger fueled me too. If not for that shoelace slip, I'd have been the fool writing that check. Now, armed with proof, I had to figure out how to reveal it without breaking her completely. Step by step, the lies were unraveling, and I was ready to pull the final thread. Those next few nights were pure torment, the kind that leaves you staring at the ceiling until dawn breaks. I'd sit at my old wooden desk in the dimly lit study, the glow from my laptop screen casting shadows on the walls as I clicked through the screenshots again and again. Each image felt like a slap. Terrence laughing in a haze of neon lights, his arms slung casually over some friend's shoulder in a club that screamed excess, or those donation receipts to Serenity's stream, where he'd thrown away hundreds like it was pocket change. As a mother, I felt utterly betrayed. As a woman who'd raised her daughter alone after losing her husband, I felt foolish for buying into his charm. How had I missed the signs? The humble stories? The faded clothes? It was all a performance, and I'd applauded it. Terrence kept calling, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Mrs. Carter, how's the account freeze going? Anything I can do?" he'd ask. But now I heard the underlying eagerness, like he was fishing for when the money would flow again. I'd keep my responses short and vague, buying time while the knot in my stomach tightened. Finally, over breakfast one morning, the smell of fresh coffee and toast filling our cozy kitchen, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Michaela sat across from me, scrolling her phone in her pajamas, her dark curls tied back in a messy bun. I slid the printed screenshots toward her. "Baby, we need to talk. Look at these." Her eyes widened as she flipped through them, her full lips parting in shock. "Mom, this can't be Terrence. These photos, they must be old, from before we met. Or maybe it's just guys being guys at a party." Her voice cracked a little, defensive, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. I shook my head gently, pulling up the streaming app on my tablet to show the donation logs. "Look closer, sweetie. These are recent. Timestamps from last month. He's King T, dropping $500 gifts on this Serenity woman, night after night. And those club pics? That's Darius tagging him in stories about living large. This isn't the man who's been telling us he can barely afford rent." Tears glistened in her eyes, her brown skin flushing with emotion. "He's not like that, Mom. He works so hard. He's always talking about saving for us. Maybe it's a mistake, or he's stressed and blowing off steam." Her words trailed off, but I could see the doubt creeping in, cracking her certainty. I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment to push without breaking her. "Michaela, I love you more than anything, and I want you to be happy. But we can't ignore this. Let's make a deal, a fair one, so you can see for yourself." I reached into the drawer where I'd kept some old safety gadgets from my teaching days, when I'd worried about walking home late from parent-teacher nights. I pulled out a tiny pin camera disguised as a brooch and a slim recorder pen that looked like any ordinary ballpoint. "These are simple. Plant the pen in his bag or car, wear the pin on your jacket, give it a week. If everything checks out, if he's the hard-working guy he claims, I'll apologize to him face to face, and that $280,000 check is yours. No questions." She stared at the devices, her fingers trembling as she picked up the pen. "Mom, this feels wrong, like spying. What if it's nothing?" But after a long pause, she nodded slowly. "Okay, for peace of mind. But if he's innocent, we drop this." I hugged her tight, my heart aching for the pain I knew might come. "Deal. Just be careful, baby." A few days passed in tense silence, the air in the house thick with unspoken worry. Then, one evening, Terrence mentioned over dinner a casual pot roast I'd made to keep things normal, that he had a late client meeting downtown. Michaela exchanged a quick glance with me, her resolve hardening. After he left, she slipped the recorder into his glove compartment when she forgot her scarf in his car earlier that day, and pinned the camera to her coat. "I'm going out for a bit," she said quietly, kissing my cheek before heading out to follow him discreetly. Hours ticked by like molasses. I paced the living room, the clock on the mantel mocking me with its steady tick-tock. Finally, my phone buzzed with a text. "Mom, he lied. Heading home." When she walked in, her face was ashen, eyes red-rimmed. She collapsed into my arms on the couch, sobs racking her body. It was all true. The club, the woman, Serenity. He was boasting about your money, saying awful things about me. The recordings confirmed it. His voice, slurred with drink, bragging to Darius. "Her mom's loaded. $280,000 easy, man." And worse, degrading Michaela in ways no mother should hear about her child. We stayed up late, her head on my shoulder as she cried out the hurt. But by morning, as sunlight filtered through the curtains, something shifted. Michaela wiped her eyes, her voice steady. "I'm done being fooled, Mom. Let's end this." The morning after Michaela's world shattered, she woke up transformed. Her eyes, usually so bright and trusting, now held a steely glint, like tempered steel forged in fire. She was 32, with her father's determined jawline and my resilient spirit, her skin a warm caramel tone that glowed even in her exhaustion. She sat at the kitchen table, her curls tied back in a no-nonsense ponytail, methodically backing up every file from the night before, the video footage, the audio recordings, even screenshots of the social media posts. 3 copies, she murmured, saving them to cloud drives, a USB stick, and her laptop. One for us, one for the lawyer, and one just in case. I watched her, my heart swelling with a mix of pride and sorrow. This was my baby girl, learning the hard way that love could be a battlefield. We didn't waste time wallowing. "Mom, we need to end this on our terms," she said, her voice steady but laced with quiet fury. Together, we hatched the plan. First, I called my old friend Darius, a sharp family lawyer I'd known from church for years. He was a tall, silver-haired black man in his late 50s, with a deep baritone voice that commanded respect in courtrooms. Over the phone, I explained everything: the deception, the evidence, the betrayal. "Brielle, this sounds like classic fraud and emotional manipulation," he said gravely. "I'll draft a breakup agreement, dissolution of engagement, no financial claims, no contact order. We'll make it ironclad." By afternoon, he emailed the document, and I printed it out, tucking it into my purse like a weapon. Meanwhile, Michaela handled the lure. When Terrence called that evening, his voice oozed false concern. "Hey babe, everything okay? You sounded off last night." She took a deep breath, forcing a sweetness into her tone that made my skin crawl. "Oh, just tired from work, honey. But good news, Mom's account issue is sorted. We can reschedule the signing for Friday." I could hear his excitement through the speaker. "Really? That's amazing. I'll confirm with the notary." She hung up, her face contorting in disgust. "How did I not see it before?" she whispered. "All those little lies." Over the next few days, she played the part flawlessly on every call, laughing at his jokes, sharing mundane details about her day, while inside, her rage simmered. I admired her strength. It reminded me of myself after losing my husband, channeling grief into action. Friday arrived crisp and clear, the kind of Chicago morning where the wind off the lake carried a bite. We dressed for battle, Michaela in a tailored black pantsuit that hugged her curves, accentuating her poise, her makeup subtle but empowering with a bold red lip. I chose a simple navy dress, my gray curls pinned up, gold earrings dangling as a reminder of my own worth. We drove to the notary's office in silence, the weight of what was coming hanging heavy. Terrence was already there, striding in with his usual tall, lean frame, dressed in a crisp shirt and slacks, those damned expensive shoes polished to a shine. His smile was wide, revealing straight white teeth, but now it looked predatory. "Ladies, ready to make this official?" he said, hugging Michaela a bit too tightly. She stiffened but forced a smile. "Absolutely." The notary, a middle-aged white woman with glasses perched on her nose, and the real estate agent, a chatty Hispanic man in his 40s, greeted us warmly in the private conference room. Papers were spread out on the mahogany table, pens at the ready. But before anyone could sign, Michaela stood, her hands steady as she connected her laptop to the projector. "Actually, before we proceed," she said, her voice clear and unwavering, "there's something everyone needs to see." Terrence frowned, tilting his head. "What's this about, babe?" The room dimmed slightly as the video flickered to life on the wall screen. There he was, in that dimly lit club, arms draped around Serenity, laughing uproariously as his friends cheered. The audio kicked in. "Her mom's loaded, $280,000 easy. And Michaela? Boring as hell, like a dead fish in bed. Once I get the house and money, she's out." Gasps echoed. The notary's hand flew to her mouth. The agent's eyes widened in shock. Terrence's face drained of color, his smooth brown skin turning ashen. He bolted up, lunging for the laptop. "What the hell? You spied on me? This is invasion of privacy." I stepped in front of him, my 5'6" frame feeling 10 feet tall, blocking his path with a firm hand on his chest. "Sit down, young man. You've got no right to touch that." Michaela paused the video, crossing her arms. "Spying? No, Terrence. Confirming. You lied about everything, Your poor boy act, the nights out working, the money you blew on her while begging from us," he stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's not what it looks like. Those were jokes, guys being guys. I love you, Michaela. Don't throw us away over this." The notary cleared her throat awkwardly. "This changes things. We can't proceed if there's coercion." The agent nodded, gathering his papers. "Yeah, I'm out." Michaela's eyes blazed. "Oh, we're done all right. But on our terms." I pulled out the agreement, sliding it across the table. "Sign this. End the engagement. No claims on the house or money. No contact, ever again. Or we go public with this video. Your job, your friends, everyone sees the real you." Terrence's hands shook as he read it, his goatee twitching with suppressed rage. "You can't do this. I put in effort too." Michaela leaned in, her voice low and cutting. "Effort? Like humiliating me behind my back? Sign it, or the next call is to the police for fraud." Defeated, he grabbed the pen, scrawling his name with a flourish that turned into a scribble. The notary witnessed it reluctantly, stamping the page. We stood, gathering our things. As we walked out, heads held high, the autumn sun felt warmer, like a promise of new beginnings. Terrence slumped in his chair, alone with his unraveling lies. The sense of victory from that signing day didn't last long. Just 2 weeks later, the storm hit in a way I never expected, online. It started with a whisper from my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who pulled me aside in the grocery store parking lot one afternoon. "Brielle, honey, have you seen what's going around on social media? Some awful posts about you and Michaela." Her voice was hushed, her eyes wide with concern, like she was delivering bad news about a family scandal. I rushed home and fired up my laptop, my hands shaking a bit from the unease building in my chest. There it was, on a popular gossip forum and spreading to Instagram and TikTok. Anonymous accounts, clearly run by Serenity's diehard fans, blasting us with vicious lies. One post featured a blurry photo of Michaela and me leaving the notary's office, with a caption that read, "Gold-digging duo scams hard-working guy out of his dream home. Mother-daughter team traps innocent man. Forces him to sign away his rights after promising money. Beware of these con artists." They'd even clipped short audio snippets from our confrontation, twisted out of context to make it sound like we were the manipulators. In one edited clip, my voice boomed, "You sign this or else," omitting the part where I was defending our evidence. Another mangled Michaela's words, "You're garbage," without the full sentence explaining his betrayal. The comments were brutal, piling on like a digital mob. "These women are the real villains, preying on a guy's vulnerability," one user wrote. "Poor Terrence, he deserved better than a cold-hearted witch and her scheming mom," another chimed in. My phone started buzzing nonstop. Calls from distant relatives, old colleagues from the school where I taught, even a few church friends. "Brielle, is this true? Did you really trick that young man?" my cousin Darius asked over the line, his tone laced with doubt that stung like a slap. Michaela got it worse. Rumors reached her workplace, a community center for at-risk youth. Her boss pulled her into a meeting. "We've seen some concerning posts online. Is there any truth to this? It could affect our reputation." She came home that night, her face pale and drawn, tears welling up as she recounted the humiliation. "Mom, how could they do this? It's all lies, but people are believing it." We weren't about to let this slide. That evening, sitting at the kitchen table with mugs of chamomile tea to calm our nerves, Michaela and I decided to fight back. "We have the proof, Mom. Let's hit them where it hurts, legally," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. I nodded, pulling out my address book to call a lawyer friend from church, Ms. Elena Ramirez, who specialized in defamation cases. "Brielle, this is classic cyberbullying and slander," Elena told us over a video call the next day. She was a sharp woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. "They've crossed lines by spreading false info that damages your reputations. We'll sue for defamation, emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. Send me all your evidence, the full recordings, videos, timestamps, everything." We compiled it all: the unedited footage from the club, the signing room video, text messages, and even screenshots of Terrence's double life. Elena filed the lawsuit swiftly, targeting Serenity's main account and the fan pages as defendants. The case moved fast. Our evidence was ironclad. In court documents, we showed how the clips were doctored. Side-by-side comparisons revealed the manipulations. Serenity's defense crumbled. Her lawyer argued it was just fan speculation, but the judge wasn't buying it. "This is deliberate harm," he ruled during a preliminary hearing. Within weeks, Serenity's social media accounts were suspended for violating terms of service on misinformation. Terrence, exposed as the likely source feeding her the twisted story, faced backlash at his job. Whispers from coworkers led to him quitting quietly, slinking away to who knows where. Justice felt sweet, but hard-won. The ordeal taught us resilience, turning our pain into power. As the dust settled, Michaela hugged me tight. "We did it, Mom. No more hiding." And in that moment, I knew we'd not just survived, we'd triumphed. Months had passed since that fateful day in the notary's office, and life had begun to settle into a new rhythm, one that felt both liberating and a little bittersweet. Michaela, my strong-willed daughter with her warm smile and resilient spirit, had taken a bold step toward independence. She found a cozy one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood on the west side of Chicago. Nothing extravagant, just a place with a small balcony where she could sip her morning coffee and watch the world wake up. "Mom, I need this," she told me one evening as we packed boxes in our old bungalow. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held a mix of excitement and nerves. "I've relied on you for so long, but after everything with Terrence, I realize I have to build my own foundation. No more shortcuts." I nodded, folding her favorite quilt, the one I'd sewn for her when she was a teenager. "I get it, baby. You've grown so much through this mess. But remember, independence doesn't mean you're alone. I'm just a phone call away." We shared a long hug, and in that moment, I saw the woman she'd become, no longer the starry-eyed girl who'd fallen for a charming facade, but someone wiser, with a quiet strength that mirrored my own. She moved out a week later, and on her first night, she called me, her voice echoing slightly in the empty space. "Mom, it's weird being here by myself, but it feels right. I even cooked dinner. Your recipe for smothered chicken turned out pretty good." I laughed, picturing her in her new kitchen, apron on, determined to make it work. "That's my girl. You'll do great. Just take it one day at a time." Those small conversations became our lifeline, bridging the gap as we both healed from the betrayal. For me, at 62, with my silver-streaked hair and the laugh lines that told stories of joy and hardship, the experience had been a harsh reminder of how easily trust can be manipulated. I'd kept the $280,000 tucked away in my savings account, untouched. It wasn't just money anymore. It symbolized the boundaries I'd learned to set. "Wisdom is the real gift I'm passing on," I confided to my sister over tea one afternoon. "Not cash, but the ability to see through the smoke and mirrors." As time went on, Michaela threw herself into her work as a social worker, helping families navigate their own crises. She started volunteering at a community center, teaching young women about financial independence and spotting red flags in relationships. "Mom, if I can prevent even one person from going through what I did, it'll be worth it," she said during one of our weekend brunches. We were at a little cafe near her place, sunlight streaming through the windows, casting a warm glow on her face. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You're turning pain into purpose. That's powerful." She smiled faintly, stirring her coffee. "Yeah, but it still hurts sometimes. I replay those recordings in my head, his words, the laughter. How did I miss it?" I leaned in, my voice gentle but firm. We all want to believe in love, honey. But now you know, actions speak louder than words. That pair of shoes? It was a detail, but it cracked open the truth. Reflecting on it all, I realized how much our story highlighted the dangers of this modern world, where people curate perfect personas online and in person, hiding debts, addictions, or double lives behind smiles and promises. In an era of social media filters and carefully staged lives, teaching discernment is crucial, paying attention to the small inconsistencies, like expensive accessories clashing with tales of struggle. Always trust your gut, I advised Michaela during a late-night call when she was doubting a new friendship. Details don't lie, even if people do. She paused, then replied thoughtfully, "You're right, Mom. I've started noticing things more, like how someone handles money or treats waitstaff. It's like you gave me a new pair of eyes." We grew closer through the healing process, our bond unbreakable despite the scars. I joined a book club at the local library, surrounding myself with other women who'd faced similar heartaches, sharing stories, over coffee and laughter. One evening, as Michaela visited for dinner, her famous lasagna bubbling in the oven, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. "Mom, thank you for not letting me walk into that trap," she said softly, her head on my shoulder. "I was so blind." I stroked her hair, just like when she was little. "We both learned, sweetheart. Love shouldn't come with a price tag or hidden agendas. And freedom? That's priceless." If there's one lesson from our ordeal, it's this. In a world full of facades, empower the next generation to look beyond the surface. Teach them to question, to verify, to value themselves enough not to settle for illusions. What would you have done in my shoes? Or rather, spotting those telltale ones? Would you have confronted immediately or gathered evidence like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspectives and where you came across this story. If this tale of betrayal, resilience, and redemption resonates with you, consider supporting me with a donation to keep these real-life narratives coming. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of truth and self-love. With heartfelt thanks, and until our next journey together, this is Brielle Carter signing off.